Torah Tetzaveh 166. Shh. Top of the page. Okay, now the Rebbe was explaining what's the eitzah that we don't, that Amalek stops the revelation of Elokus from coming down. It's case Yudke. It conceals the Yudke instead of having kisei of Yudke Vavke, that it comes down into Midas and Elokus comes all the way down. That's what Amalek blocks. Shh. So what's the eitzah? He says, fight Amalek with Anshe Moshe, right? Men of Moshe Rabbeinu. What's Moshe Rabbeinu? Ultimate bittul, which means doing Torah mitzvahs is ultimate bittul, because they realize that it's Chochmah, it's Elokus, realize the level of Elokus coming into the world through the level of Chochmah, and therefore through learning, and therefore he says that's why the tzitz was made out of gold, and Kodesh LaHashem, he said that this level of Kodesh without the Vav, which is not the way Elokus is not revealed down here, unlike the word Kodesh with the Vav, is Lemata, and that's the level of Yud-Ke Vav-Ke from above. Okay, so then it says, okay, this, by the way, this paragraph we learned, we'll start again. Then you should seal on it a seal. He said that refers to the Torah, the seal of Hashem, this we learned yesterday. The seal of Hashem is truth. Why is it called a seal? Not the animal seal. Why is it called a seal? Ki ha-Torah, they're both spelled the same way. Ki ha-Torah she'lefanenu. Torah, which is before us, nislabish b'dvarim gashmi, comes into physical things. Is the chesem is similar to a seal, just like Asis, when you take a seal and you engrave wax with it, what they used to do, right? With a wax seal. So now you're taking this letter and you're putting into a gashmistika thing, in a way that's part of the gashmistika thing. That letter that's engraved in the wax is no connection whatsoever with the refinement of letters of thought or speech. These are letters that mamish come into a tangible level. Rakmikama came nevertheless in Esis Hatzma. They're the same letters in the style of in his Gashmi. In other words, it says like this. You can have letters. You can have letters of thought and speech which are more refined. Then you have letters coming into a physical object, like a seal. Even though it's a much lower level, but nevertheless, it's still the same letter. It's the same letter coming down into a physical object. That's exactly what Torah is. Torah is the highest levels of godliness coming down into cows and leather and agriculture and all these physical things. When it says Hashem made us in His image and form, which is only Dmus v'Dinyan Ba'alma, which is only a image of Torah from above. Similar to letters engraved on wax. This is where we're up to from yesterday. So he says, nevertheless, even though Torah comes into low physical objects, you say, don't say Kodesh. The foundation is in the mountains of Kedusha of above. Shebachol halacha, which is level of Chochmah, which is found in every single halacha. In other, every single halacha is the wisdom of Hashem coming down into letters. And through this, then you reveal this higher level of Kedusha from above. In the level of Pnimis, in a Pnimi and a Makif level, Torah is Pnimis, and Mitzvahs are Levushim Makifim. This we learn many times. Torah, you have to learn. You have to understand it. Torah is called bread, because just like bread, in order for bread to give you power, you need to eat the bread. You have to chew it. You have to digest it. You put bread on your stomach, you're not going to get full. What's the meaning of bread? You have to chew it, and then it's internalized, and then you have food. Torah is called lechem, because you have to understand it, especially Torah Shabbat Peh. You have to digest it. It has to become internal. Mitzvahs, on the other hand, are called garments. You don't internalize a mitzvah. It's an action, it's a garment of doing the mitzvah. Like we say, Shekid Shana b'mitzvah, V'inam Shachar b'chinas Kedesh, Lamed, Lemata. That's the level of the tzitz. The tzitz is Kedesh, Lamed, right? Lamed is Lemata. And what are we bringing down the Havaya? Sir. Shebachin is Kedesh She'elyon. Adayin Nikra Lemata. It still comes down here in the level of Havaya. Kine, okay. Kine Yesh Bechinas Havaya. There's two levels of Yud Kei Vav Kei. We have it like he's going to quote. Hashem, Hashem. Right? You have the higher level of Hashem and the level of Yud Kei Vav Kei. It can say, Vayav Hashem upon Vayikra Havaya Vayib Psik Tame B'Tameo. And, I mean, to say the Torah, there's no signs, but when you lane it, Hashem Kel Rachum V'Chanun. The Medrash says there's a line, so to speak, in Sefer Torah you don't have a line, but there's a line of a separation between one level of Yud Kei Vav Kei and this lower level of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Kihein Beis Bechinas, because they're two distinct levels of godliness. Inyan Havaya Meir Hashu Mahava Kol Havayis Miyayin Leyesh. Okay, the one level is Yud Kei Vav Kei as creator, Shaydei Sha'ala B'Tzaynei. V'yesh Malkav V'Shayder, so that, and there's two, the source of that, Kach B'Tzaynei, Lias Malkav L'Avis Kol Havayis, then you have like this, the way Hashem actually creates world, and then above that is the source of Hashem to want to create world. In other words, like this, we know, to simplify it, there's 7 names of Hashem. One of the names is Yud Kei Vav Kei. Okay? In that respect, all the names are equal. They're all names of Hashem. Then you have the essential name of Hashem, known as the tetragram, whatever. The essential name of Hashem is Yud Kei Vav Kei. But that's not the same level of Yud Kei Vav Kei. The way it is one as the attribute of Tiferes or Rachmonus. You know, Kel is Chesed, Elokim is Gevura, Yud Kei Vav Kei is Rachmonis, Tiferes. So that level is where Hashem comes down. You name Yud Kei Vav Kei as one of the 7 attributes. But then you have the source of that, that's a higher level of Havaya. Just like we find interesting, if you daven this morning, or if you said a pre-davening, by Raked it says, Avram, Avram, Vayomer Hineni. Hashem said, Avram, Avram. Okay? Now, Hashem didn't stutter that he said Avram twice. Or, by Moshe Rabbeinu it says also, Moshe, Moshe twice. In Chumash. One place. So they're not repeating. It's 2 levels of Avram, there's 2 levels of Moshe, and there's 2 levels of between you of Yud Kei Vav Kei. So he says like this. V'yesh, okay, v'zeh vu havaya rishon shelo rotzen lifnei havaya. Habeis, that's the level of b'tachtov, it says in the pasuk, b'tachtov le'er petucha cheisam kedesh Hashem, and then the pasuk says, l'rotzen lifnei Hashem habeis, which is called deriving the will of all wills. So you have one lower level of Yud Kei Vav Kei, then you have a higher level of Yud Kei Vav Kei, okay? So the Alter Rebbe says that's the whole level of the tzitz, okay? Which is pitachta of pitucha cheisam, you seal it, meaning that's the way, just Torah is called the seal of Hashem, because just like a seal comes into a physical object, you can't seal in the air. It has to be into a physical object. So there's a level of Elokus Torah comes into the physical world. That's what Torah is called, cheisam mishal kodesh baruch hu, the seal of Hashem. Nevertheless, okay, there's a higher level of Torah that Lamaila that doesn't come into the physical world, which is even higher, essentially, even higher than the wisdom of Hashem. We know Torah, the pasuk says in Chumash, Ki chachmaschem uvinaschem le'enei ha'amin. Torah is your wisdom, it's Hashem's wisdom. Yet we learned many times, there's a medrash that says, what is Torah? Shashui Amalek Batzmusay is the toy of the king that he plays with. Now what do you mean? Torah is a toy. A toy represents pleasure, enjoyment, which is higher than the level of intellect. There's a level of intellect, meaning there's a way Torah comes down in an intellectual form, which is the way Torah deals with world. That's the Chesama Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But then you have a higher level of Torah. The way Torah is infinitely higher than world. That's the level of Tainug, the enjoyment which is even higher than willpower, which is even higher than intellect. That's what it says. Vayavra Hashem upon Vayikra, Hashem korachim v'chan. Shavaya echad, what does it mean? The first Havaya. Keire mamshech Havaya base. Reveals Vayikra Hashem. So it says, he's defining it like this. Hashem calls the second level of Hashem. And there's a lower level of Hashem calls the higher level of Hashem to be revealed. Lias Netzelis and Mizgalis, to become Atzilis and reveal. Yud Gimel Mechil and Derachme. The 13 attributes of mercy, right? 13 attributes. Shem Meked is Kol Havayit, which is the source. Again, there's Atzilis, and then you have the source of Atzilis. The level higher than Atzilis. That's the Yud Gimel Midas Derachme. Is Lamayla Mechinas Kedesh. The first Havaya that the second Havaya calls to, meaning it brings down, that's higher, that's the level of, it's higher than the level of Kedesh, and it's called Raiva the Raivin, the will of all wills. Which, by the way, is the end of Shabbos afternoon, is called Raiva the Chol Raivin. The will of all wills is the loftiest, highest level of Shabbos. That level is revealed that by day, and now, in a way of a now through Bittul, Nimshach Shia Kedesh Lamed Lamata, comes the level of Kedesh Le, right, the Lamed, Kedesh Lamata, in a level of Serusa de Lasata, by awakening from below. Havaya Lamaili Serusa de Leila, and then Havaya above it, the higher line, that's the awakening from above. So the tzitz has two levels. There's the awakening from below, and there's the Havaya from above. And that's why nowadays we don't have the tzitz. How do we do it? Through Limud HaTorah. Because from one side, Limud HaTorah, Torah comes into the seal. It deals with Gashmistic things. But with that Gashmistic learning of Torah, dealing with Gashmistic, physical, corrupt things sometimes, that brings the level of Kedusha, which is even higher than world. Which your Chachmas in the sign is Baruch. Kamayim upon like reflection of water, what happens? Ruach Aise Ruach Va'amshech Ruach. One spirit brings the next, and it brings on Rotz and Elyon V'Raiva D'Raiva. By days and Nasigili Rusa the Libo becomes the revelation of the will of the heart. The earth aval yoina benefesh, without the masach mavdom mechitza mafsekas, without this curtain that blocks. Remember, the Alter Rebbe was explaining that Amalek creates the curtain that blocks, and it's only meitzitz menacharakim. It's only going through the cracks, you know. So what undid that Amalek? The tzitz. Because the tzitz was bringing down the Kedesh Havaya in a way of Kedesh Lamata. So the same thing now, we don't have the tzitz, but now we have Torah. So what happens when you learn Torah? The learning of Torah from below, dealing with the physical things, meaning we're connecting to Torah that comes down here, that reveals the level of Torah which is higher than world, higher than anything. To the extent that this level becomes on Aaron's forehead. Forehead means it's revealed. In a Gilu B'chinazu, in this revelation.
The second Havaya is on Chi?
No. It's still a name. Even the name of Yud Kevavke, the higher level of Yud Kevavke, it's still Shem Ha'etzem. It's not the essence. It's not Anechi. It's not Ata. It's a name. But it's a higher level of a name.
Tanub is not essence.
To a certain extent it is, but it's not. Relative to everything else. In other words, Rotzein, okay, you have Seichel and Midas, right? Now you have Rotzein, willpower. Willpower means I want something. That means I am drawn to something. Okay? There has to be something out of me that I'm drawn to. So Ratzin is the way the neshama still is connected to something else. Enjoyment is not connected to anything else. Something else causes the enjoyment, but the enjoyment is me enjoying it with myself.
So it's one way to it on?
Yeah, but it's still not the essence. I mean, relatively speaking, is the essence. What's interesting, I spoke about this Monday night a little bit. Even the level of Yechida is still Chamisha Shemesh Nikrala. When the Gemara says Chamisha Shemesh Nikrala, the Neshama has 5 names, Nefesh, Will, Neshama, Chai, Yechida. So Yechida is still a name. Because when Yechida binds to Yachid, remember Yechida is the feminine of Yachid. So it's the receiver of Yachid. Right? When Yechida connects to Yachid, that's the real essence. I don't know if what I'm saying is correct, but that's what it seems to me. It's probably wrong, but anyway.
The nefesh is the essence.
Yeah. Okay, so he says, what happened by the tzitz? It was on the Kohen's forehead. So now instead of the tzitz, he says we have learning Torah, right? So how does the forehead get in there? So he says, to understand the union of the forehead, it says, Yesh betlas chaloli de galgalta tlas meichen chabad. The Gemara speaks about this. There says about there's 3 compartments in the head. Okay, it says like this: V'yesh galgalta de chaf yal remecha, and then you have the skull that covers the forehead. In other words, you have 3 chambers of Chabad in the brain, right? Chacham bin and das, and then you have the part of the person that covers the brain. What? Whatever you say. So you have the physical thing that covers the brain, which is the forehead. The forehead basically covers the brain. If you have one. If you don't have one, it's a problem. Kach beruchnis, same thing as in ruchnis. Hine meichen em Chabad, meichen is chochma bina das. Vadas is koyach ha-mekasher is chochma bina. What is that? Okay, we're going to leave this for tomorrow because it needs explaining.